Our next topic of discussion is diabetic retinopathy, screening and implications. Welcome Dr. Richa Kamal for the presentation of this topic. Actually, as we all know, the diabetic retinopathy is a common microvascular complication of diabetes causing visual impairment worldwide. However, starting from visual impairment, the diabetic macular edema, and from NPDR to PDR in various stages, and there are different modes of treatment, and the outcome will depend on patient compliance and the proper treatment in proper time. However, let us move on to the topic direct. I invite Dr. Richa Kamal to start her deliberation. Please, over to you.
Thanks. First of all, a very good morning to everybody, the chairperson. Okay. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present at this platform. So my topic is diabetic retinopathy, screening and implications. But first of all, why do we need to know this? Why do we need to discuss this topic over here? As we all know, the prevalence of diabetes between the age group 20 to 79 years in India is around 8.9%, and it is expected to reach 100 million by 2030. Now, diabetic retinopathy affects 3/4 of the diabetic patients after 15 years of disease duration, and it has become a leading cause of blindness in industrialized world in this age group. So, where would the target population report first? They are the primary care physicians, diabetologists, endocrinologists, cardiologists, nephrologists, health physicians, and all the specialized treating diabetes. So before moving on to discussion, I would like to present a few case examples just to show the spectrum of the disease. This was a 47-year-old female. She was a known diabetic on insulin and oral hypoglycemics, referred to us by a nephrologist. She complained of sudden diminution of vision in her left eye for past 7 days, and right eye she was asymptomatic. So on examination, we saw that her best corrected visual acuity in left eye was counting finger 1 meter, right eye it was 636 parts. So, and on examination, there was dense vitreous hemorrhage in left eye. Right eye, it had dot blot hemorrhages, cotton wool spots, hard exudates, neovascularization elsewhere, dull foveal reflex. So, we did one OCT for this patient in right eye as the media was clear. So, that showed diabetic macular edema. Since in left eye media was not clear, so we did one ultrasound that showed retina was attached and there was dense vitreous hemorrhage. So, this was a case of high-risk PDR with vitreous hemorrhage in left eye, and right eye it was proliferative diabetic retinopathy with diabetic macular edema. So we advised her to undergo intravitreal anti-VEGF injections along with panretinal photocoagulations 2 to 3 sittings for right eye, and left eye vitreoretinal surgery. Okay. This is another case example. 51-year-old male patient presented to us with sudden diminution of vision in both eye. Right eye, his vision was 612, left eye 618. On examination, there was neovascularization at the disc, and left eye, there was neovascularization elsewhere, along with other hard exudates, cotton wool spots, dull foveal reflex. We also did fundus fluorescein angiography for this patient that showed hyperfluorescent patch in right eye at the disc and elsewhere in left eye that confirmed NVD and NVE, that is neovascularization at the disc and neovascularization elsewhere. We did one OCT for both eye. So that showed diabetic macular edema, and also we did one OCT, that is optical coherence tomography angiogram for this angiography for this patient. So this was a case of both eye proliferative. It's okay, my slides are same. It's okay, let the slides go on. It's okay, let it be. It's okay, let the slides. Put on the slides. Put on the slides. Make it first one. It's not coming. इसको yeah, it's okay, fine. It's okay, it's okay. So I'm sorry. Okay. It was a case of proliferative diabetic retinopathy, that is PDR, with diabetic macular edema, and this patient underwent anti-VEGF injections intravitreal along with panretinal photocoagulation, that is retinal lasers in both eye. Okay. So this was another patient. He presented to us with diminution of vision in both eye. Right eye, on examination, right eye 618, pinhole improving to 612. Left eye 612, no improvement with pinhole. On examination, there were dot hemorrhages, cotton wool spots, dull foveal reflex, and on OCT it showed diabetic macular edema in both eyes. So this patient had to undergo intravitreal anti-VEGF injection. So post-injection, the DME subsided. So this was 47-year-old female. She was completely asymptomatic. She was referred to us with her treating physician for a routine retina checkup. So on examination, her best corrected visual acuity was 624, that improved to 6.9 with pinhole, and left eye 6.9 parts, that improved to 6.9. So on OCT, it showed diabetic macular edema. So this patient of non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy with DME, she had to undergo intravitreal injections in her both eye, and subsequently it subsided DME. So this is another spectrum. This patient had undergone lasers and injections previously, and then she was lost to follow-up. She was just sent to referred to us by her treating physician for a just routine retina examination. So on examination, on OCT, we found that she had a diabetic macular edema in left eye, and she had to subsequently undergo intravitreal anti-VEGF injections that subsided the DME. So whenever we get a patient of diabetes, what are the common ophthalmic complications we expect? The most common being retinopathy, which I'll be discussing in detail later on. Other than iridopathy, unstable refraction, and one more is there, it's a dry eye. That is also quite common in diabetic patients. Uncommon, recurrent styes, xanthal asthma, oculomotor nerve palsies, reduced corneal sensitivity, neovascular glaucoma, accelerated age-related cataract, and very rarely diabetic papillopathy and rhino-orbital mucormycosis. So diabetic retinopathy, the prevalence is around 40% in diabetic cases, and actually the incidence of diabetes is more common in type 1, but since the disease burden is more of type 2 diabetes, so is the diabetic retinopathy. The sight-threatening disease occurs in about 10%, and proliferative diseases are seen in around 5 to 10% of the cases. Type 1 incidence increases to about 90% after 30 years. So what are the risk factors? The most important risk factor is duration of the diabetes. So if it is diagnosed before 30 years of age, the incidence after 10 years is around 50%, and after 30 years it becomes 90%, and it is said that in case of type 2 diabetes, even 5% of the patients, they present with diabetic retinopathy at the time of presentation. Duration is a significant indicator for proliferative disease more as compared to maculopathy. And this is the guideline given by AAO, that is American Association of Ophthalmology. In case of type 1 diabetes, they should be screened for diabetic retinopathy 5 hours after that, within 5 years of diagnosis. In case of type 2, they should be screened at the time of diagnosis. In case of pregnancy, whether it is type 1 or type 2, they should be screened soon after conception and early in the first trimester. And this point I'll be discussing in detail a bit later. So next important risk factor other than duration is poor control of diabetes. As per Diabetes Control and Complication Trial and UKPDS, tight blood glucose control, if instituted early, it will prevent or delay the development or progression of diabetic retinopathy. However, if there is sudden improvement in control, there will be a short-term progression of retinopathy. The good effect of good control shows better in type 1 as compared to type 2. HbA1c is a better predictor of proliferative disease, and it is said it should be kept between 6 to 7%. And in case of frail elderly patients, it should be kept about 8%. And about 1% reduction in HbA1c, they reduces the microvascular complications by about 1/3. Now, pregnancy. It is said that there occurs a rapid progression of diabetic retinopathy during pregnancy. So what are the factors on which it depends? First is greater pre-pregnancy severity of retinopathy, poor pre-pregnancy control of diabetes, rapid control during early stages of pregnancy, pre-eclampsia, severity of diabetic retinopathy in first trimester. And it is said that during first and second trimester, it worsens a lot, especially during the towards the end of the second trimester. That is the peak. Then 5% of the mild cases and 1/3 of the moderate cases, they might progress to proliferative disease. If substantial diabetic retinopathy is present, then follow-up depends upon the stage of the patient. Diabetic macular edema usually resolves spontaneously after pregnancy, and they need not be treated if it develops in late pregnancy. In case a diabetic patient is planning to become pregnant, then ophthalmologic examination is a must prior to pregnancy, and they should be properly counseled about the risk of development and or progression of diabetic retinopathy. However, in case of gestational diabetes mellitus, they do not require an eye examination. Usually, there is not much increased risk of diabetic retinopathy during pregnancy in such cases. So whenever we get a diabetic retinopathy patients, we advise them 3 things: a good control of blood sugar, blood pressure, and lipids. So blood pressure is also a very important risk factor, and they have to be rigorously controlled below 140/80. And a tight control appears to be particularly beneficial in type 2 diabetics with maculopathy. The cardiovascular disease and previous stroke, they are also predictive of it. Nephropathy. Nephropathy, if it is severe, it is associated with worsening of diabetic retinopathy, and the treatment of renal disease, especially if the patient undergoes renal transplantation, then that may be associated with improvement of retinopathy and a better response to the laser photocoagulation. Other factors includes hyperlipidemia, smoking, cataract surgery, obesity, and anemia. So patients with diabetes, they need to undergo regular retinal screening, and this even the physicians can do by just dilating the pupil using T+ and with the help of direct ophthalmoscope. So what are the signs they have to look? Usually microaneurysms, they are the first sign of diabetic retinopathy to appear. Then other than that, dot blot hemorrhages, exudates, cotton wool spots, looping, beading, severe segmentation, IRMA, that is intraretinal microvascular abnormalities. Then these were the non-proliferative forms. Now, diabetic macular edema and ischemic diabetic maculopathy, they are the one that usually affect the vision of the patients. So that actually requires investigations, OCT and FFA. Then for proliferative diseases, neovascularization at the disc, neovascularization elsewhere, neovascularization of iris, which is also called rubeosis iridis, and we also do gonioscopy in undilated patients to check neovascularization at the angle. So what we follow is the classification being given by ETDRS, that is Early Treatment Diabetes Retinopathy Study, and they have divided it into non-proliferative and proliferative, and further into various stages, and depending upon that, we call up the patient for follow-ups or we treat the patient. So these are the recommendations given by AAO for treating patients with diabetes, and as per presence or absence of macular edema or their proliferation, so we do intravitreal anti-VEGF injections or focal lasers or panretinal photocoagulations for such patients. So investigation. Before investigation, it is very important to take a proper history from the patient, a good visual acuity check, intraocular pressure check, then good slit lamp biomicroscopy including 90D and 78D, and then dilated fundus examination using a 20 diopter lens and indirect ophthalmoscopy. Then color fundus photography for documentation, optical coherence tomography, that is very important for us, fundus fluorescent angiography, OCT angiography, it is a very newer modality and it's actually a non-invasive procedure. So ultrasound B scan we do for when there is media haze. Now treatment, the key to the prevention of diabetic retinopathy is proper patient education and long-term control of good blood sugar. So the patient should be properly educated regarding follow-ups and treatment, and they should be properly counseled that they need lifelong treatment and follow-up for this. Need for weight reduction and exercise, that should be told to them. Then good diabetic control, other risk factors, particularly systemic hypertension and hyperlipidemia, they should be taken control of. Smoking should be discontinued. Other modifiable risk factors like anemia and renal failure treatment, that should be done. Now, for diabetic macular edema, we mostly depend upon anti-VEGF therapy that we give intravitreal injections. And if we are not able to, or if the patient cannot afford, then other modalities could be laser photocoagulation, as in focal laser or grid or modified grid lasers. Intravitreal steroid is also an option, which we give as triamcinolone acetate or dexamethasone implant, which is a sustained release implant, that is Ozurdex. So, but there is a side effect of steroid that it causes raised intraocular pressure and acceleration of cataract. Then pars plana vitrectomy, we have specific indications for that. I'll be telling it later on. Pan-retinal photocoagulation, usually in case of proliferative diseases, if there is severe NVD, it reduces the risk of visual loss at 2 years from 26% to 9% with PRP. Advanced diabetic eye disease, it includes hemorrhage, tractional retinal detachment and neovascular glaucoma. So what are the indications for pars plana vitrectomy, that is vitreoretina surgery? Severe persistent vitreous hemorrhage, progressive tractional retinal detachment threatening or involving the macula, combined tractional and rhegmatogenous RD, that is retinal detachment, premacular retrohyaloid hemorrhage, anterior segment neovascularization and media opacities. Among them, persistent vitreous hemorrhage or progressive tractional retinal detachment involving or threatening macula, that is the most important one, and they have to be treated as soon as possible with pars plana vitrectomy. So to conclude, what are the clinical objectives? First, identify the patients at risk of developing diabetic retinopathy, and there should be a collaborative approach between the patient, the primary care physicians, and the subspecialists in management of patient's systemic disorder. So, so as to have a better control of blood sugar, blood pressure, serum lipids, body weight, management of renal disease, coronary artery disease, and neuropathy. Encourage and provide lifelong monitoring of retinopathy progression, treat patients with visual loss or those at risk for visual loss from diabetic retinopathy to minimize the side effects of treatment that might have adverse effect over patient's vision or vision-related quality of life. Like there are some case reports of idiosyncratic macular edema, which is associated with glitazone class of oral antihypertensive hyperglycemic agents. Provide or refer for visual rehabilitation services when a patient has visual impairment from the disease, ophthalmological follow-up for potentially reversible causes like cataract, glaucoma, or refractive changes, retinal imaging screening programs that may help increase the chances that at-risk individuals will be promptly referred for more detailed evaluation and management. So my take-home message is, the goal of treatment should be to improve or stabilize the visual function, improve vision-related quality of life, proper communication with patient's primary care physician so as to achieve optimal control of blood glucose, blood pressure, and other metabolic risk factors. Diabetic retinopathy progresses from mild to more severe stages if proper intervention is not done at proper time. So it is very important to recognize the stages when treatment may be the most beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Richa, for your excellent deliberation and a good overview of the diabetic retinopathy subject as a whole. I would ask from the audience if they have any questions regarding this.
मुझे 130 उठा दोगे?
Let me
requesting people to not unmute their mics, please. Yes, sir. Sorry. Please continue.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. When do you advise angiography in patients with retinopathy?
Angiography. Whenever we suspect the patient is undergoing for severe NPDR or especially PDR, to see the proliferative changes, we advise the patients to undergo FFA to see the leakage pattern, to confirm the proliferations, NVD, NVE. such patients.
Apart
or
from
for maculopathy, ischemic maculopathy. If there is patient is not responding to anything and there is visual loss, so in such cases we can check for maculopathy, ischemic maculopathy.
Please unmute.
Apart from
All one,
PRP,
please unmute.
you have shown in your one slide anti-muscular endothelial growth factor drugs.
Yes, sir.
Do you consider or use ranibizumab in this case?
For proliferative, sir?
Yes.
Sir, actually there are studies, especially DRCR.net studies, S protocol, that suggests that we can use PRP against anti-VEGFs against PRP. But sir, in that case, patient has to be followed very, very regularly, because in some cases, what happens, PRP gives a prolonged effect. Like even if they lost to follow-up, it doesn't matter that much. But in case of anti-VEGF, we need to follow them up.
No, what I mean to say, in severe diabetic macular edema or severe PDR,
okay,
do you recommend anti-VEGF?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Protocol S says that, sir.
Okay. If there are any questions from the floor?
Thank you. Excellent presentation.
So there is an excellent presentation from your end.
Thank you.
And give her a good applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Indeed, a wonderful session by Dr. Richa Kumar for giving an excellent talk on diabetic retinopathy.